road to be a millionaire in all 6 aspects of health. That's right, it's not just about a big bank account. Every week, we share tips to improve your physical health, mental health, social health, spiritual health, intellectual health, but obviously, we do your financial health too. Today, we are focusing on how to improve your financial health with home ownership. If you have never seen Millionaires Are Made, this is the show built on the fundamental beliefs that every person you meet knows something you don't, like my shirt says. And there's something to be learned from everyone in this big, beautiful world. We are on a mission to teach the world how to grow into the healthiest, happiest millionaires in all aspects of life. To do that, we've got 3 awesome guests who are going to give us 3 awesome tips on how to improve your financial health with home ownership. Audience, this is a very interactive show. Please feel free to comment and ask questions. We ask them live on air so that you can get your answers right away from our guests. If you want to be a guest on our show, check out the link we're dropping right now. We'd love to have you share some knowledge, help the world grow. And if you have a topic that you're struggling with, maybe you're lost, maybe you're not sure on how to do something, let us know. We're always looking for topic ideas and we are running low, so we would love to have as many as possible. If you love what we do, free growth info. I do one-on-one coaching as well. It's free. We're dropping the link right now. I'd love to see you sign up and come hang out with me. All I do is spend all day, every day learning from experts. And then I tell you everything I learned. Congrats. We do have merchandise now. We love it. This is our shirt. We got a few different things. We're dropping a link right now if you want to grab some merch. Hopefully you find a sweet little calendar or a mug, something like that, to make yourself a reminder that millionaires are made every day. And without further ado, I would like to extend a huge thank you to our sponsors today. First, we have Craig Sakovsky, who is a human behaviorist and mentor. He helps entrepreneurs discover their true identity, purpose, and achieve growth in business and life. Check him out. He's super, super smart. Our next sponsor is Sarah Jones. Used to be buried in debt and a helpless marriage following a big name program for getting out of debt, and ended up finding out it was not how she wanted to live her life. So she set out, found a way to build a healthy financial foundation so that her and her husband can travel the U.S. in a giant RV with a bunch of toys and teach everyone else how to set up an awesome financial foundation. Our third sponsor today is Cam Knight. Cam is a super strategic thinker who turned his career uncertainty into a path of mastery. He actually passed the CPA exam and learned that intelligence is a skill, not a gift. So now he's on a mission to teach everyone how to learn faster, think sharper, and achieve more. And our final sponsor for this episode is our awesome friend, Jeremy Roderick. He's the author of Lead Like a King. He coaches high-value dads who refuse to settle for a life of frustration and resentment. If you are not in the perfect marriage or if there's some sort of rift, you should check out Jeremy and go say hi. Lead Like a King is the roadmap for mastering marriage, creating unshakable confidence, and leading with power at home and in business. And now that we're done, we're going to give a few shout outs to our followers. Facebook, Jennifer Wilson, Instagram, Jessica Grayso, TikTok, Aury Hope, and YouTube, Janelle Davis. Thank you so much for following. Remember, if you want to be shouted out, you do have to follow us. And that will bring us to our first guest. Her name is Misty. Misty, tell us, who are you?
My name is Misty Gilbert, and I'm a transformational coach that works with entrepreneurs, helping them to become self-made millionaires and better landlords.
And better landlords. All right. I have an idea of where this next question may go. Misty, if I wanted to improve my financial health with home ownership, what simple piece of advice would you give me?
On the front end, I would ask you to look at what you qualify for in a loan, in a mortgage, based off of your net income, not gross. Most people report gross and not net, and therefore they have a struggle with their budget and actually no leverage for those things that they want to buy after they move in the house.
All right. So knowing your gross income basically for most people will be like their salary, right? Their take home pay. And you're recommending to focus on your net income, which is subtracting your expenses.
You kind of, most people say I make 100 grand a year, so I should qualify for this kind of a house payment. They don't take into
Smart.
effect the actual amount that they're actually going to be living on, which is their net income, not gross. So their take home is not gross, it's net. And most people refer to, well, I make this much money in underwriting, and will usually work off of the summary sheet is based off of gross, not net. When they get to the final numbers and they look at your debt to income ratio, they will equate it then, but not at the front end. The front end is always like, well, you can qualify for a $350,000 house because you make 100 grand a year. Okay. But if you look at, depending on, your tax status and deductions and exemptions as far as dependents or things like that, you might be walking away with a net of 75,000 instead of 100. That's a huge difference to be making a financial commitment on.
What are some
If
things?
you work off of net,
Go ahead. What are some things that would change your income from 100,000 to 75,000 from your gross to your net?
well, I mean, depending on what you're putting in as federal withholding, so either estimated quarterly tax payments or federal withholding works the same way on a W-2, an employee. And any other deductions that you might have if you're doing pre-tax expenses, it's going to lower your tax threshold, but that's actually going to be money coming off of your gross. If you're paying into any 401k plan or a Roth or an HSA or any of those kinds of things, that's money going out that's going to come off of your deductions. The number of dependents you have changes your Social Security, Medicare, and federal withholdings, right? So if you do 0 versus 6 dependents or whatever, all those numbers change. So if you're looking at 100 grand versus, even if, let's just say, you're only paying $10,000 in taxes coming off your paycheck, well, instead of 100 grand, now it's at 90,000. Those numbers make a difference when you're looking at your budget. If you allow for off of net and work with you creating space, then you're going to have the ability to put more towards principal each month. If you pay $100 towards your principal each month, you're going to lower your interest paid on the loan. You're going to knock off, on average, just even $100 will knock off approximately one payment by being consistent on that through the whole year.
Yeah, one payment.
So, I mean, obviously it depends on your loan amount and all those kind of things. But like if you look at in 12 months, if you made $100 extra principal towards it, you will reduce your loan by one payment. So basically, if you're maxing it out at your gross and you're budgeting off of gross, but that's not really what you're living off of, you're going to have a discrepancy and it's going to feel tighter than it really should be because your numbers are not being based off of the actual figures you live on. So my recommendation is to not apply for loans based off of gross in your mind. Even with the numbers you give them net. So you have that live less than what you can max out so that you have the room, because once you move in, there's repairs and maintenance many times if you're not buying a brand new house. If not, you're going to suddenly want, curtains or new lamps or new decor or new couch or something different to spice up this first-time home buyer potentially, or if you're starting a relationship and you're moving in together. All these things are really exciting, but if you don't have the give in your budget because you've based it off of gross and not net, you're going to have a huge discrepancy and be extra tight in your finances. So that's my recommendation, is to how to get ahead from the get-go by living on less than you actually make. And look at what your net income is.
I like it. If you want to take it one step further, you could even take 5% of your net or gross and put it into savings or investment and then buy your house, assuming that that's going to be gone every year. Misty, where on your life journey did you learn this tip?
Well, I've always worked in finance on some level. And when I bought my first house and was looking at the underwriting guidelines and what the criteria they were taking, I was both an employee somewhere and an entrepreneur. So I had two different sources of income, and those numbers get calculated differently depending on your tax status, right? And what kind of business you have, if it's an S corp, if you're an employee, your company, all these kinds of things. And I was looking at their preliminary stats were being done off of gross revenue. And I'm like, well, you don't live off of gross. So you're not really, if you're qualifying me off of my gross income, then you're really not looking at the net of what I can really afford. So it was kind of a back end approach to me calculating. Obviously, I want to get the most I can and want to buy the house of my dreams, but I don't want to overextend myself and create frustration later. Plus, I wanted to be aggressive at paying my house off. My first mortgage I paid off in 8 years and 10 months.
Nice.
And so, in order to meet those targets, my goal was 10 years. To meet those targets, I knew I had to create a back end approach to create a formula that I could actually manage to be able to meet that target and that dream.
Love it. Awesome, Misty. Thank you so much. We're going to move on to our next guest, and we're going to bring you back out for the round robin. Next up, we have Ben with a fascinating new way to pay off a mortgage. Ben, who are
Hey,
you?
who am I? Oh, I am a husband, a dad, a granddad, stepdad, foster dad, dog dad, cat dad. I mean,
My
I'm just a
daddy.
dad. Uh, yeah, lots of dad jokes. It's kind of my
Yeah,
thing.
that's true. That's true. All right, Ben. If I wanted to improve my financial health with owning property, what piece of advice would you give me?
Oh, so you've got to finance property most of the time. You don't have a big pile of cash to pay for it. But I always thought mortgages were the only way to pay for it. Turns
Did
out
you
there's another way using
did you
correctly
almost
structured
forget your
lines of
tip?
credit. What's that?
You almost forgot your tip. I was like, "What's your tip?" You're like, "Oh, yeah, oh, okay." All right, tell us your method. How does this work, Ben?
Well,
Screw
I can't give away
mortgages.
the. Yeah,
Do Ben's
mortgages
thing.
are funny. Mortgages, you've heard of the amortization table in a mortgage?
Okay.
You know what that is? It's just a schedule. It's like a spreadsheet that says each month you owe us this much interest and this much principal. We'll pay off that much of your loan, but we're going to take this much money from you. And so there seemed like it was unfair. Like, why am I giving the bank most of my money? It's like renting. I'm not getting anything for the money I'm giving them each month. So, what if there's a way where you can pay more like this much to the principal, pay this much to the actual loan, and then some interest also at the end of the month? And so we developed a strategy that I didn't develop it, I just learned about it. We developed a strategy where you can kind of flip it around to where you're paying more principal, more towards the loan, and a whole lot less towards that interest. Now, you're going to be upsetting your bank a lot because there's a reason they drive a brand new Mercedes every year. It's because they're taking a lot of your money and not applying it to the loan. They're applying it to the bank's bottom line, right? So this is a great way to pay the same debt you already owe faster by not having by you're able to bypass a lot of the interest on that amortization table and pay straight towards that principal. You
And
don't even
how do
have to
you
get
do
a
that?
second job. You have to use correctly structured lines of credit. There's a lot of different types out there that work: personal lines, business lines of credit. There's even some called, you've probably heard of this, HELOC, home equity line of credit. And there's different types from different banks. You know, you've got 20,000 banks out there, and very few of them offer the type of HELOC or other line of credit that would work this way. So you've got to find the right bank, you've got to have the right strategy, and you got to have someone who's gone through it before to show you the way. Kind of like having a Sherpa when you're going up Mount Everest, because
That's
you
right.
need
It's a
someone who's
home
been there
payoff
before.
Sherpa.
Yeah, it's a loan
All right,
payoff
so
Sherpa.
you
That's what I do.
so what you buy a house, you pull out a HELOC, and you use that entire thing to pay down the principal.
There's more than one way, but if you've already got a mortgage, you can use a number of lines of credit to do it. But in a perfect world, like what I'm aiming for in my own life, my own wife, is to replace my mortgage with a home equity line of credit. We've got way more than 10% equity in our house already. What if I paid off the same debt that I already owe using a different product from a different bank, and it lets me pay straight towards the principal and still pay some interest, but not massive amounts of interest and teeny tiny bits of principal, but more like large amount of principal and a little bit of interest.
And so you essentially have aligned with the correct bank that has the correct product to help you with that. I assume.
That's right. There's a lot that goes into it, a lot of moving parts, but that's kind of the meat and potatoes of it. You definitely want to use a different product than a mortgage, because mortgages are there to make the bank money.
Fascinating. So lines of credit pay down the principal, and then now you just have a line of credit you have to pay off versus and then do you use the house as collateral for that line of credit?
In a lot of cases, you would, yes. And they would be like a larger the line of credit is, they would probably be in the first lien position. So if something happens to you,
If
God
they
forbid
paid off the
something happens
mortgage.
to you, yeah, and you have to sell the house to pay off they'd be the
It'd be
first
first.
position to get paid. And imagine if you lose your job. What happens if you have a mortgage and you lose your job? They still want their payment each month, right? No matter what. Suppose you had a really good month and you threw $50,000 right at that mortgage. What happens? You can't get that money back out of the mortgage without a costly refinance. But if you have a line of credit, you put $50,000 in it today. Well, 2 or 3 days from now, you can take that back out, fix your car, pay your bills while you're going to get a new job, and in a couple months, you're back up and running again. You don't have to have a huge payment like a mortgage payment. You just have to do the interest at the end of the month on a lot of these HELOCs for the first 5 years or so.
Fascinating.
Nice safety
Yeah.
net.
That is fascinating. And then so if you have a HELOC, so you have to have good credit for a HELOC. Well, if you have
Yeah,
it as
you want to be really close to 700 or above. I mean, there's a little bit of wiggle room between maybe 680 and 700, but banks are going to look at that and say, is this person going to pay us back? Even if we have their house as collateral, I want to make sure they're going to pay us back.
When you take out the line of credit, is it only HELOCs or do you do like standard business line of credit or personal line of credits as well?
I don't want to go too into detail, but I do know that there are personal lines of credit, business lines of credit, and HELOCs. And depending on your situation, you may only use one of those three, or you may use all three, and your money just kind of goes in circles like this, not paying any interest or paying very little interest compared to what you would pay with a mortgage.
Sounds more complicated, but if it can shave
is.
off $100,000 or $200,000 off your home price, it might be worth giving Ben a call and learning more.
That's all I'm here to do is teach.
All right, Ben, we're going to move on to our next guest. Our next guest is Mitzi. Mitzi, who are you?
Hi, I am a mentor, a mindset mentor, and a mobile mentor, and I was a past financial advisor. So I have 10 years in finance, and I teach people how to flip trailers and their mindset. And I show them how. Yeah, well, because most of the time the problem is mindset, and so I had that in there. And I'm sorry, half my hair is like disappearing. My room isn't ready for everything, so I did a virtual background, but I do have hair.
I like it. Mine's virtual too.
Yeah, that's nice. So I teach people how to make passive income off the trailers, just average Joes, without using any of their own money.
Fantastic. All right. Well, let me ask you this. If I wanted to improve my financial health by owning property, perhaps trailers, what piece of advice would you give me?
Well, find a mobile home and a trailer that's like under $5,000, and then also find an end buyer that's going to give you $5,000 down, and then create a note. And that's what I show people how to do. So you're basically finding cheap mobile homes, and mobile homes are an overlooked lead source. Most people are like, I don't want to deal with mobile homes. There's no money in mobile homes. There is money in mobile homes. I've made 6-figure flips on mobile homes. I've done, it's nice. And because there's not a lot of competition, and it's high ROI, it's like, for me, I really like it, especially with the decline in affordable housing, and it's really needed right now.
All right, let's delve into this a little bit. So you're finding mobile homes for sale anywhere in the U.S., I assume.
Mm-hmm.
And then you find out how much shipping is going to be. Well, you can't do that till you have an end buyer.
You know what I do is I find them in mobile home parks already. So it's not even land you're going to own, but I show people how to be the bank. So it's not like you have to even worry about that.
So it's like owner financing mobile homes.
Yeah, they're already in parks. So they're really an overlooked source, especially when they don't have land with them. Well, what's great is it's not really considered real estate. It's considered personal property. So you can have a higher interest rate on it as well than you can for houses. So
what kind of interest rates you giving out there, Mitzi?
I stick with 12%, but you can charge 18%.
Oh, man. All right.
That's why I want.
Slumlording it. I love it.
Well, I do flip them and make them look like houses, unless I do find something really cheap. Like I did one just now. We just closed on it, and I bought it for $5K down. So I talked the seller into owner finance. I bought it for $5K down, but I found a buyer that gave me $20K down, and I talked him into $500 a month. And then I had my buyer; he's paying me over $800 a month. So I'm making like $334 a month off this. And passive income, and I didn't have any money in it, and I made it 15,000 at closing. So like that's the kind of deals that I structure. Yeah, and it was in a park, so I don't have to worry about moving. I don't have to worry about all of that. Everything's taken care of in that way.
And then the new owner just goes in and lives there. That's the park they wanted to live in.
Yeah, and they just they apply with the park, because a lot of mobile home parks don't want subleasing. What that means is like if you own the trailer and then you rent it out, they're basically subleasing that lot because they are not the owner and they're not the one leasing it directly from the mobile home park. So they're leasing it from you. Mobile home parks don't like subleasing. And so like how to get around that, pretty much owner finance it and make them the owners. So you don't have taxes, insurance, maintenance, nothing. You're just the bank collecting money.
I mean, I like to flip owner finances in big houses, but yeah, I bet you could do it a lot faster in mobile.
Oh yeah, the closing is faster.
How much like mobile homes are what, like 20, 50,000, 100,000?
Oh no, I'm getting them for free. Like because nobody likes them. I got one for free and sold it for $42,000. I got another one for $4,500, sold it for $15,000, just real quick. But I go for like free or really, really cheap, so that I can or I'll talk them into owner finance and collect a bigger down payment. But my idea is like to get it for hardly anything, because people aren't emotionally tied to mobile homes like they are houses. So you can really talk them down. And there's not a lot of buyers either. So I just have to wait and keep following up, and then I get my price eventually.
Look at you. All right. Financial health, owning property, flipping trailers. Do you ever set any of them up as Airbnbs?
No, but I was thinking about that. I actually, well, I don't know if I'll do on this one, but I'm doing like a mobile home mansion. So I'm putting a single wide and a double wide together, and then making a hallway between. We're gonna have a courtyard in between it. It's gonna be like pretty cool looking double.
So you're actually doing construction. You're gonna like refabricate.
Yeah, we do flips, and I'll add mobile homes to land and all that too. But yeah, I like the owner finance side, and then I own a mobile home park too, and I'm looking for more. But yeah.
Where is that?
Floresville, Texas. I live in San Antonio, so it's like 20 minutes from San Antonio. I like to keep things local.
Yeah, if you owned all of those mobile homes there, you could just make it a giant Airbnb park.
I do own all the mobile homes.
Add in pool.
Yeah.
Oh, then yeah, you could easily put a pool in, and it's like RV parks are popular to buy nowadays. Owner finance RV parks, and add a few upgrades or whatever, but you could easily do the same thing with a mobile home. Yeah. Awesome, Mitzi. All right, we're going to bring everyone out here and do a little round robin. 3 fascinating people with 3 very fascinating different tips. I love it. All right, let's start. Audience, this is a great time to ask questions, by the way. Let's start with Misty. Can you quickly refresh what your tip was for us?
Absolutely. My tip is when you're going to go purchase a house and begin the underwriting process and figure out what can you really afford and how can you maximize getting the biggest house of your dreams, is to look at your net operating income, your take-home pay, and not do it off of gross income, so that you have leverage to be able to pay more down on principal, and you can do any upgrades, add a patio, a pool, or anything else you want to do to the house when you're not maximizing your total income and you're living off of exactly what you're going to take home. You'll not end up as stressed and frustrated.
Yeah, that's super smart. Get a smaller home that's a little cheaper than you may originally want, but now that extra money that you have, put it towards that principal so it saves you a lot of time. Ben, what are your thoughts on her tip?
Oh, I love it. There's a lot of gold nuggets in there. I should have wrote down more notes. There's so many good. I mean, just being able to understand what your money is doing for you, instead of being, oh, I can afford that because the bank told me I could. No, that's not a good way to do things. Yeah. I know, because I used to do it that way.
You make a good point. Benjamin, I'm gonna tap into something you just said, because realtors are going to push you to buy the biggest house. Mortgage brokers are going to push you to buy the biggest house. You want the biggest house. Nobody wants to go in and go, well, I only was pre-qualified for a $200,000 home instead of $350,000 home, when I'm intentionally making the gap really large there. But the housing market has been so aggressive the last couple of years. If you look at a couple of years ago, somebody's debt to income ratio can change dramatically in a quick amount of time, depending on the laws. Underwriting guidelines changed for the self-employed during the pandemic. So what I could qualify prior to the pandemic and what I qualified for after the pandemic were two different numbers. Okay. So understanding my gross versus net is critical, particularly if you have multiple streams of income that can vary. Versus a W-2 person who's got a set salary, it's a lot easier to make a budget off of. But if you don't know the difference between my business makes this, but I take home this, my gross salary is this, but I take home this after child support and all the other things that go out of your paycheck, your net amount is liable to be a lot less than you think. And that's not to be an insult to people and make them feel that they're not working for their $100,000 salary, as I used as my example. It's to help you realize you're really living on 75. Mm-hmm. And so what you really take home is not 100. And if you're making all your budgets off of your gross revenue and not your net, and this applies to all budgeting beyond mortgage, you're going to have stress.
Agreed. So that's huge. So then, Mitzi, do you want to talk about Misty's tip a little bit there too?
Oh no, I think that's great. I was thinking of so many things. Like, can you imagine if business owners were going off their gross revenue to buy a property? Yeah. Yeah, it could be a huge difference for some people. So I think that's a great thing to mention. I've noticed, like what you said, a lot of people don't think of it like that. Like, this is really all I'm bringing home. This is what I need to be budgeting off of. Yeah. So that is a really great tip.
But even the pre-qualification forms, that I don't know if you do it with your mobile homes that you do, but they go, what is your gross revenue? Yeah. That's exactly what it says. What is your gross revenue? It doesn't say what is your take home.
I say take home.
They are intentionally programming you to be up here and to think, I make this much money, and that's, you make it, but you spend it. It's off the top. It's gone. It's like if you tithe and you think of 10% being gone off of your pay, like it's the same concept. It's gone. You do not have to work that money to work with. So if you're trying to make a budget off of, you're going to be stressed.
Oh yeah.
You're going to be really stressed.
Oh yeah.
And I think that's a huge point too. I mean, not only just your take home pay, but you could even shave more off depending on what you want. I mean, like tithing. Mm-hmm. If you tithe 10% every week or whatever, then take your take home pay even lower. You can create your own budget, which I guess is the real point Misty's trying to prove is, you don't take all the money you have and invest in this house. You can take less than that and invest less in the house and that gives you a little bit more flexibility to do whatever you want. More vacations, pay down that principal more, or invest in the stock market. However you want to do it, it gives you a little more flexibility, and you just have to live in a smaller of a house or less expensive house, which realistically is probably good for you in the long term of your life, anyways.
Yeah, and your personal house isn't even really considered an asset, right? Most people don't consider that an asset when it comes to investments. They look at that kind of like a liability because you're dealing with maintenance, taxes, and everything else. So like, instead of being house rich and like life poor, have that extra money to invest. Yeah.
Super smart. All right, Ben, let's go over your tip. Refresh us what your tip
learn
is.
How to replace your inefficient mortgage, which is a product from the bank, with a more efficient credit product so you can pay down that same debt much faster and less expensively.
All right, a fascinating way to buy houses with different financial products. And this is definitely, that's fascinating. Because lines of credit are huge, used in business all the time, especially if I've bought extra or investment properties with lines of credit. So I never really thought about replacing my own personal mortgage. Fascinating. Mitzi, what are your thoughts on that?
I think that's a great idea. Yeah, that's definitely going to save you money in the end and also make it a lot more flexible.
Oh, for sure.
And I'm sure you use that all the time with your if you actually buy the property, I mean, you're not really pulling mortgages out on like $20,000. I don't.
No, and really the way are you asking me? I just want to make sure I'm
Yeah.
no, what I do is basically I find the mobile home for the same price or less than what they're willing to put down payment for. So I don't even there's no money in the deals. I just make money. Yeah.
I love it. All right, Misty, what are your thoughts on Ben's tip?
Leveraging other types of loans to pay something down is a great thing. I mean, as a landlord, I've been a landlord for 8 years and I've got 4 rentals currently. I have an SBA loan, that I got during the pandemic at 3.75%. And then I'm turn around and loan that money and invest it into another project where they're turning a assisted living facility into an apartment complex. And I put 100 grand into that and I'm earning 6% interest. So if you were to look at apples to apples on that, yes, I got some borrowed money at 3.75%, turned around and invested the money, making 6% interest. So then that is a net of 2.25% just off of that, no other expenses, right? So the question I would have for Ben is, what is the interest rate on these HELOCs? Because generally a HELOC is a higher interest rate than a mortgage. So if you've got a mortgage, which all of my mortgages on 3 of my 4 houses have mortgages, right? One's 3.18%, one's 5%, one's 8%, the other one's paid for. So between those, if I'm going to turn around and do what he's saying to pay down principal more, what is the interest rate of my HELOC? If I'm just trying to create a strategy of paying off more debt so then I can leverage cash flow, that's one thing. But if I'm really assuming more interest on a second loan and that creates a cash flow problem because I've got to rob Peter to pay Paul to get all this to move, I'm not sure how you get ahead. I'd have to see his formula, but the idea of strategizing and utilizing other resources to pay something off quicker, even if you accumulate more debt in the end, I was raised to be kind of like a Dave Ramsey approach, where you always just knock out a smallest debt to largest and just you ignore everything. I've had to learn how to build wealth with debt because I was told debt was wrong. It was a sin. It was a religious concept of how I was raised. I had to shift my mindset to see how debt can work for me. And I think that's what Ben's trying to help people to do is don't just take out a note and assume you've got to pay this interest the rest of your life. There's options to strategize so you pay down the principal sooner.
Yeah, there's definitely a difference in between the way that loans figure out interest. That's usually a compounding interest thing. So by the end of the loan, it may say like, oh, it's only 3%, but you look at the final total interest percentage, it's like 60 or 70%. That's the real rate of interest that you're paying on those loans. With a line of credit, it's not compounding interest. It's simple interest that accrues daily or weekly or monthly, kind of like that. And so while the interest rate shows higher, the actual amount of interest that you pay is much lower than that mortgage interest because it's not compounding. And so to compare those two rates is like oranges to apples kind of. You've got to look at the very end. What is the total interest you would have paid with that loan over 30 years? And what is the total interest you would pay on a line of credit that you pay off in like 5 to 7 years? It's just way lower. Even though the rate's higher, the amount of interest you pay at the end is so much lower. And that's what the magic is when you're using different types of debt products. You find the one that makes you pay the least amount of interest by the time it's all paid off.
All right. We got a question from the audience, and then we're going to wrap it up and make our daily challenge. I have a rental property, but I'm not sure if it's truly profitable. What are the key numbers I should track?
Ooh, I want you two to talk about this. This is your wheelhouse.
I think we both could. Mitzi, do you want to go first?
So rental property, you want to make sure insurance, taxes is a big deal when it comes to rental properties. And what is the property been remodeled in a way like it's got vinyl flooring instead of carpet, so you want to look at like what's going to have constant maintenance when changing out tenants too. So that I would say those things right there. And then also make sure it's in a good location with good schools so it's constantly being rented out.
My recommendation to figure out if it's profitable or not is to first look at what is the income that you're making on the property. So income minus mortgage, minus insurance, minus property taxes, minus planned repairs and maintenance, routine repairs and maintenance like air filters. If you yearly have to do your septic system or anything like that that's an ongoing repair, you want all of those, then that's your net profit. You can do it by the year, you can do it by the month. You need to run both because cash flow is monthly, but you need to look at it yearly for tax purposes. If you're improving the property, you got to understand, is this a depreciable expense or is it a direct cost expense on my taxes? So capital investments, improvements that are for cosmetic or overall building up of the property is not tax deductible on your P&L. It's a improvement to the asset, which gets depreciated over time. Houses get depreciation at 27 and a half years. So if you're looking at true numbers, you've got to also keep that in mind because your cash flow will go out for these capital investments, but it's not going to be a deduction on the P&L. So when you look at true numbers, you've got to understand what are your operating costs off of that income, and know your profit margins. Everybody's going to have a different number. You can use an app called Deal Check to input your numbers, and it'll give you a quick assessment of your property. For me, my target, I don't look at buying a property less than a $250 a month cash flow. That's not lucrative, and a lot of people in today's market are going to disagree with me and my number, going to say you need at least 500. Again, it comes down to, for me, all my properties were first primary residence and I lived in them. So I know what they need and how they were taken care of and what was done to make their bones perfect. Okay. So when I move out and turn it into a rental, it's not the same as me just buying a piece of trash down the street that I rehabbed and quickly got up and running. Okay. So you don't know what the sewer system is going to do. You don't know what the AC is going to do during the middle of summer in Texas. So knowing your true numbers comes down to several things, and understand that when you have rent coming in and a mortgage on it, your principal is not really considered an expense. So profit between what's on your P&L and on your tax return are going to be two different numbers. So knowing your true numbers, know them on a monthly basis, know them on a yearly basis, and figure out how much you're going to need to set aside for a cushion.
And know what your rate of interest is going to be on that too, because that's a legit expense. If it's something you can write off on taxes, it's definitely an expense. And if you can switch from using a mortgage to more of a credit product, a lot of times, if there's enough cash flow, you can get it paid off faster, and less of the money that you're paying in goes into the pocket of some mortgage banker that doesn't even know your name. It goes towards the principal. It goes towards that actual loan. So you pay it down faster with the same money that you were paying in anyway. And that's a huge benefit because it's paid off faster, and then you're into the gravy faster, right? That money is just coming in as rents, and you're not having to pay it out to a bank anymore. So definitely look at what kind of rate of interest that you're getting with the credit product or the loan product you're using to pay for that property.
All right, guys, it's time to come up with our daily challenge here. It's got to be a task or series of tasks that take less than 5 minutes a day, costs $0, and is available to anyone in the world to help us improve our financial health with owning property. What do you guys suggest?
What about improving curb appeal just with sweat equity? Just going and working on the front of your house. You can use a shovel.
What if you don't own property
If you
yet?
don't own property yet, suppose you live in an apartment, you can still do that kind of work. Plant flowers, pick flowers somewhere, plant them here. Make your landlord happier. Maybe in response, they lower your rent a little bit or give you a free month at the end of the year or something like that.
Or don't raise it.
Or don't raise it.
Okay. All right, I like that. Improve your curb appeal.
I would say, in line with my tip, start looking at figuring out what your net income is and what kind of a property you want to spend in a mortgage every month. How much of your take-home pay do you want to put to where you live, instead of just making it the standard of living that a mortgage is $2,000 or whatever your number is. Figure out, I would like to have this much of my portfolio take-home pay going towards my residence. And of that amount, I would only like to be paying 5% interest. How much money do I need to have set as a cushion in my savings account so I can put down a bigger down payment so that I can get a better interest rate? Or what do I need to do to my credit to improve my credit score so I get a better interest rate? Or what area would I want to buy a house? And start looking at the information online, realtor.com, Zillow.com, figure out what are zip codes I want to live in. How much do these properties appreciate? Do they kind of stagnate? Are they 3-2s? Are they 2-2s, 2-1s? Are a lot of apartments? How quickly do these properties turn over? Are there other fees because they're in an HOA or a subdivision that has other dues and subscriptions, if you will, to my cost of living? What would probably be my return on investment if I stayed here 10 years, or if I stay here till my kids have graduated high school, or I choose at that point in time to turn it into rental like I have, these numbers will help you figure out the lifestyle you want to live. And if you choose to make a plan with your money, you're going to have much more peace and feel confident in your structure to pay down your debt and have the lifestyle of your dreams.
Research. I like it.
Yeah, research. Look into a house that you may want that's for sale. Look into it, see what it cost it is, all the bones, all that kind of stuff, and then look into a financial product. I would say mortgage, but since Ben's on here, we got to just broaden that horizon a little bit. But I know there's a lot of financial, even mortgages out there that are doing like $1,000 down, get into a house. Obviously, they may not be the best for you, but there's also down payment assistance with like CHASA and stuff like that. There's a lot of freaking programs that do a lot of different things. So at this point, it's just you're going to have to start researching and figuring out what's best for you. Yeah. Awesome, guys. Well, thank you so much. We're going to wrap this up. I knew it would go long.
Mitzi had something to share
let
real
Mitzi
quick,
talk.
Austin.
No, it's okay. I was just curious what the question was. I missed the question. I was reading the comments. My ADHD kind of went off. So I just totally missed your question. What was that?
I think we just came up with our daily challenge.
Oh.
Something that takes less than 5 minutes a day that'll help us improve our financial health by owning property.
Look for mobile homes on Facebook Marketplace and offer.
There you go. Go compete with Mitzi and buy your own trailer. Awesome. All right, guys, I'm going to wrap this up. Thank you so much for coming out again. Big shout out to all of our guests. We've got an awesome daily challenge. So it's a lot of research, right? Buying a home is a complicated process. There's many ways to do it. We just learned from Ben that you don't need a mortgage. So maybe give him a call and do some research on how that works and if you qualify for it. What else we got to do? Research a house near you. See what houses are going for. Some of you may have never looked or haven't realized how much prices have gone up or gone down if you're in certain areas of the world. Whatever. The number one thing about home ownership is definitely that it's one of the biggest tools to wealth. I mean, I think every millionaire in the world or everyone that's successful, top 1%, all own property, right? You get cash flow if you're doing it right. Misty talked a lot about your numbers. So as long as you're making money every month, yada, 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 you've got cash flow. So that's increasing your income. But the second big thing is you're also building equity. So if you do a traditional mortgage, I'm sure with Ben's credit solution as well, each month that you're paying, you're building more and more credit and more equity. At some point, you can pull that equity out with a cash out refi or with a HELOC or thousands of different ways. But there's so many financial products and mortgage products. Let's spend the next week learning about them, or at least connecting and meeting with people that have learned about them, because I've bought 11 properties, and I think each one I bought differently. My first one I bought with an FHA. Second one I think I bought with I think it was conventional. Then private money. I've done owner finance. I've done straight cash. My favorite right now is owner finance because it's easier to get in and out, and it's more of a private deal rather than getting the government regulations. It sounds like Mitzi does a lot of that with her trailers too, but there's tons of ways to buy a house. Shit, you can crowdsource a house. You can, I've done presentations on this. There's about 11 different ways to buy a house. If you want to catch my presentation, shoot me a DM. I'll send you all the info I got. But there's like 11 different ways to buy a house, and I've done like pretty much all of them, I think. So there's a lot of information, a lot of research. Go follow, check out our guests, message them, ask them about their ways. Obviously, it's succeeding for them and working for them. And then spend the next week 5 minutes every day learning something about a financial tool, something about your local real estate market or the real estate market you want to be in. Maybe it's in Thailand, maybe it's in Bali, wherever it is. Research is going to be the number one thing. This might be one of the biggest decisions of your life to buy a house, one of your biggest investments. So try your hardest to learn as much as you can and not mess it up.